Chapter 17. Life in Towns and Villages. Let's learn. Emergence of cities. Factors responsible for emergence of cities. Trade routes. Sources of information. The formation of kingdoms and empires resulted in increase in agriculture and trade. Both internal and overseas trade routes opened up. This period witnessed the development of numerous arts and crafts. These developments resulted in the growth of towns and cities. Emergence of cities. Indus Valley civilization was fundamentally an urban civilization with populations concentrated in the cities. The Vedic civilization, which followed it, was essentially rural or village-based in character. Hence, it was not until the period of the Mahajanpads that urban centers or towns began emerging once again. This development is also termed as the second urbanization. Factors responsible for emergence of cities. Increased crop production, development of skill-based crafts, and growth in trade and commerce led to emergence of cities from about 400 BCE. Some cities grew as administrative and political centers, that is, Hastinapur. Some other cities grew around markets and trading centers that catered to a number of villages. These were located in the regions of surplus goods with adjoining regions of consumer demand. Some religious centers which attracted large number of pilgrims such as Vaishali and Mathura grew into big cities. Kaushambi was one of the earliest cities. In Fuhai, Varanasi, that is Banaras, continues to be famous for its silk saris and clothes even today. Increase in agricultural production. Better knowledge of cultivation techniques and use of iron tools in agriculture made it possible for farmers to reap different types of rich crop yields. Also, more and more land was brought under cultivation after clearing grasslands and forests. New varieties of grains and other things began to be cultivated. All family members worked together in fields. Some families got their fields cultivated by workers under the arrangement of division of crops or payment of land rent. More arable land was brought under irrigation through canals and artificial reservoirs, that is, tanks. Water was fed from rivers and reservoirs into the canals to irrigate fields. Agricultural production boomed, bringing general prosperity to the people. The Nandas built a canal at Kalinga. In the south, the Chol king Karikela provided irrigation facilities in the Kaveri river valley. The pasture land lying beyond the village fields was a public property on which all people could graze their cattle. Consequently, first in North India and then in the south, there was a tremendous increase in the production of crops and livestock rearing. Crafts. The manufacturing of cloth became an important industry. There were famous textile production centers such as Varanasi in the north and Madurai in the south. Both men and women worked in these centers. Each village had potters, weavers, dyers, metal workers, carpenters, blacksmiths, goldsmiths, garland makers, basket makers, and other craftsmen. Although craftsmen lived in villages, specific crafts developed in areas where the required raw materials were available. Gradually, these areas became associated with such crafts, and the concentration of craftsmen developed into towns and expanded further to become commercial centers. Increase in trading. As a result of better agricultural production, and the growth of crafts, there were a lot of extra goods. Villages supplied these surplus goods to towns. These goods were either used by townspeople or they were sent to different regions. This led to trade. Merchants and traders participated in both internal and external trade. Trade links developed between the North and the South. India also traded with the Roman Empire. Use of coins. The increased use of money enhanced trade and commerce. Archaeologists have unearthed thousands of coins belonging to this period. They are called punch-marked coins. The earliest coins comprised of flat pieces of silver or copper of irregular shape. Coins were not inscribed but had a number of punch marks.
Emergence of guilds. Many craftspersons and merchants now formed associations known as shrenis. These shrenis of craftspersons provided training, procured raw material, and distributed the finished product.
Then, shrenis of merchants organized the trade of these products. Shrenis also served as banks where rich men and women deposited money. This was invested and part of the interest was returned or used to support religious institutions such as monasteries. Trade routes. Bharuch in Gujarat was a major seaport. The Greeks referred to it as Bari Gaza. Ships went from Bharuch to Babylon via the Persian Gulf carrying Himalayan plants, ivory, agate, silk, cotton and perfume. Imports to Bharuch included wine, copper, tin, lead, coral, topaz, etc.
Jatak tales describe ships travelling from Banaras to Patliputra and further to Champa. From there, they travelled to Ceylon, that is Sri Lanka, and Malay, that is Malaysia.
Brain tickler. What kind of occupations are found in villages now? Villages. There were at least 3 different kinds of people living in most villages in the southern and northern parts of the subcontinent. Large landowners were known as velalar, ordinary plowmen were known as uzhavar, and landless laborers, including slaves, were known as kadasiar and adimai. Brain tickler. How was trade carried out before the invention of money? In the northern part of the country, the village headman was known as the Grama Bhojaka. The Grama Bhojaka was often the largest landowner. Generally, he had slaves and hired workers to cultivate the land. The Grama Bhojaka had the authority to collect taxes from other farmers. He also functioned as a judge and sometimes as a policeman. Apart from the Gram Bhojaka, there were other independent farmers known as Grihapatis, most of whom were small landowners.
And then there were men and women such as the Dasakarmkara who did not own land and had to earn a living working on the fields owned by others.
Towns and cities. The second urbanization. Due to the growth of a large number of urban centers, this period is referred to as the age of second urbanization. Infohive. This second urbanization in India took place in about 6th century BCE.
Towns. The literary texts of the period mention many towns such as Kaushambi, Vaishali, Ujjaini, Patliputra, Hastinapur, Mathura, Rajgriha, Bodh Gaya, Arikamedu and Kaveri Pattanam. Archaeological evidences also reveal that there were a large number of towns during this period.
Each town was famous for a particular activity. Some towns were religious centers while others were administrative centers. Bharuch, Sopara, and Tamralipti were major ports and trading centers. Some towns, however, were more important than others because they were famous for many activities. One such town was Mathura. Mathura, a case study. Mathura has been an important settlement for more than 2500 years. It was important because it was located at the crossroads of two major routes of travel and trade, from the northwest to the east and from north to south. There were fortifications around the city and several shrines. Farmers and herders from adjoining areas provided food for people in the city. Mathura was also a center where some extremely fine sculpture was produced. Around 2000 years ago, Mathura became the second capital of the Kushanas. Mathura was also a religious center. There were Buddhist monasteries, Jain shrines, and it was an important center for the worship of Lord Krishna. Several inscriptions on surface such as stone slabs and statues have been found in Mathura.
Inscriptions from Mathura mention the presence of goldsmiths, blacksmiths, weavers, basket makers, garland makers, perfumers, etc.
Arikamedu, modern-day Puducherry, a case study. Arikamedu was a coastal settlement where ships unloaded goods from distant lands. A massive brick structure, which may have been a warehouse, was being found at the site. Other finds include pottery from the Mediterranean region, such as amphorae, that is tall double-handled jars that contained liquids such as wine or oil, and stamped red-glazed terracotta pottery known as Arentine ware, which was named after a city in Italy. This was made by pressing wet clay into a stamped mold. There was yet another kind of pottery which was made locally, though Roman designs were used. Roman lamps, glassware, and gems have also been found at the site. Some scholars feel that Arikamedu was a Roman trading settlement in India. Traders from Rome came and stayed here. Products that were in demand in Roman markets were exchanged for Roman coins. A huge collection of such coins has been found in the Deccan and South India. Conversely, pieces of pottery with Indian names have been found in ports along the Red Sea. This indicates that Arikamedu also exported locally made products.
Sources of information. Literary sources such as the Sangam literature, Jatak tales, Panini's Ashtadhyayi, and the Buddhist canonical texts, Tripitakas, provide a detailed and vivid description of the ancient Indian cities.
Infohype. Arikamedu was excavated in the 1940s by a British archaeologist, Sir Mortimer Wheeler. Sangam literature. Sangam means an assembly. In earlier centuries of Christian era, a gathering of Tamil poets and scholars took place under the patronage of the Pandyas of Madurai. 3 such successive Sangam were held, the last at Madurai. The literature of the third and last Sangam is the only one available today. Over 2000 poems in Tamil collected at the third assembly are compiled into 8 books, that is, Ettu Thogai. This poetry is a hive of information about Tamil society of that period. Archaeology. The archaeological finds confirm the information received from the literary sources such as most cities were fortified and surrounded by moats or ramparts. The mud dug up for moats was used to construct the ramparts. Through latter, bricks were also used to build the latter, as seen in finds at Kaushambi. The ramparts provided safety from floods and enemy armies.
Houses were better designed with such amenities as drains, ring wells, that is used as toilets and sockage pits. Mud bricks or fired bricks were the basic building material.
Northern black polished ware pottery was made in urban cities of the Gangetic Plains using high temperature firing techniques employed in iron smelting. Recap. Use of iron tools in agriculture made it possible for farmers to reap different types of rich crop yields. Merchants and traders engaged in both internal and external trade. Three different kinds of people living in most villages were Velalar, Uzawar, and Kadasyar. Craftspersons and merchants now formed associations known as Shrenis. Mathura was an important city because it was located at the crossroads of two major routes of travel and trade. Arikamedu was a major port and commercial center with trade links to Babylon and Rome. Lifescape. Mother, Mathura is indeed full of beautiful temples. Thank you for bringing me here. I am glad you enjoyed it, Payal. But mother, if this is a holy city, then why is it so dirty? I see heaps of garbage and waterlogging everywhere. You are right, Payal. The city is not clean because the people don't keep it that way. It is not only the government's responsibility, it's our responsibility too. People are ignorant of the rich legacy of the city they are living in. We all should do our bit to preserve that legacy.
Our cities are our legacy. We must keep them clean and protected.